Awesome.
parameters or the hyperparameters of the tree, because that is already.
All right, Vatla, go forward.
Okay.
My name is Michael Cabela. I'm the interim CIO and Senior Director of Enterprise Data and Analytics for Best Friends Animal Society. I met Asha years ago. We met at a data and analytics conference. I believe we were in Las Vegas, and she was doing a data strategy workshop. And we started talking there. Really, where it really evolved into an advisory role is when we started launching our data science program. At Best Friends. It was first of its kind. We started kicking off the advanced analytics program. We knew what we could do, but Asha told us, it doesn't really start with us. We don't start with the data. Michael Cabela. I'm the interim CIO and Senior Director of Enterprise Data and Analytics. We spent really the first year of the society. I met Asha years ago. We met at a data and analytics conference, I believe.
Sorry.
The science program doing no data science. We spent that entire time meeting with every department and every division in the organization around the country and educated them on what is possible with data science, what is and isn't possible with data science. I at first was hesitant to use Asha as an advisor. I've never had an advisor or a mentor throughout my career. It was something that was new to me. And so, but it was really important to me to develop people on my team. And so I really, leaned on Asha to help advise a couple of the women leaders on my team because she could give them a viewpoint that I couldn't give because she's a successful woman executive in our industry. It got to a point where Asha and I were talking a little bit more, and I realized that as I was talking with her, I needed someone to talk to myself. Yeah, I think having Asha as an advisor definitely shortened the road, shortened the path for me. I've been facing new situations that I've not faced in the past, and having someone that's been there, done that, and is so good at helping share her experience definitely has made this a more positive experience for me, and definitely has helped me along the way. For Best Friends Animal Society. I met Asha years ago.
Hey guys,
hello everyone. Yeah, good. Hello everyone. We at ASCI hope you all are doing well and staying safe. It's summer already, but we are really grateful that you stayed back for this virtual session, and we can surely tell you or make a statement that you will not be disappointed at all. In fact, it will be much more worth your time. So before we set forth, let me just go through a few housekeeping tips over here. This is a Zoom meeting, so please keep yourself muted, and if possible, go off the video for a while. In the first half of the session, while Asha is presenting her session, let it be as uninterrupted as possible. And then in the second half, we'll have an interactive session in which you will get to ask questions, and you can unmute yourself as and when we want you to, and you can be on the video also. We are live on YouTube, and we are recording the session. So feel free to revisit our YouTube channel and subscribe to it just to go through the content again. I'm sure you will like it that much. And please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Now, handing it over to Piyush, our National AACI President. Off to you, Piyush. Great. Piyush.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be here. Glad to see so many folks joining us from across the members chapters. Today, we are having a topic which is on the mind of a lot of folks who are trying to get up on the career rank. And essentially, we have an individual with us who has been a CEO herself, who has been coaching other CEOs as well. So there are barriers to getting into the C-suite, which we will be discussing. And for that purpose, let me introduce our speaker briefly. Asha Saxena is a New York-based strategic innovative leader, and she has a proven track record of building successful tech businesses for the last 25 years. With a strong academic background, creative problem-solving skills, and an effective management style, she's been instrumental in building business models for success. Now, her coaching not only helps the CEOs, but in turn, the CEOs go and perform and get their teams to perform better as well as a board advisor. And she's also a professor adjunct at Columbia University, where she teaches graduate classes on management consulting, entrepreneurship, and data analytics. And she is published columnist, and she is a very prolific content creator. She has a lot of things going on for her, and she initially, when I got to meet her, I was very impressed because of her background in big data analytics, but she's done things a lot more than that as well. And her company was named the Global Growth Company in 2007 at the World Economic Forum. So with that introduction, I would like to invite Asha onto the stage. Asha, take it away.
Thank you so much, Piyush, and thank you for having me. I'm going to share my screen just to want to make sure that you guys can see my screen. And I'm super excited to be a part of this conversation because I truly believe that learning, we all go to school and learn technical skills, but no one really tells us or teaches us. There's no school to go out and say how to be the best CEO or best CIO or best CTO. So our journey from being an engineer to a manager to a leader is really something which we learn on the job. And so I feel like the best way to learn is really hearing from people who've been there and done that. And what I will do today is really share my experiences with all of you. I know it's a Saturday morning, and I always say that leaders are always lifelong learners. Piyush and I were talking about if I had to pick a quote, what would be the quote? And I would say that leaders are always lifelong learners. So even if it's a weekend, you are here because you want to learn about how to grow and continue growing. I think we go to school in our developing years, and then we may go back to master's or do some PhD, but really there's no official way of learning until we get ready ourselves on the job to make sure we commit to spending hours and making sure we are continuously learning. So with that, I'm going to start. And the topic for today is lessons to engineers who are focused on entering C-suite. Does that mean that you have to be ready to be a CEO or CIO today? Probably not. But really, the goal is for me to start this conversation with you to say, are you a true leader? And are you thinking about the company? How are you thinking about the big picture? I want to start with an engineer. What is an engineer? And who is an engineer? I wrote a Wikipedia definition here, but truly an engineer, I see, I built a large data management consulting firm. So a little bit about my background. I did build 3 technology companies. My first one was a consulting from data management consulting firm. My second company was an e-commerce, and my most recent company was a healthcare software company. So I've worked with engineers all my life. I went to school. I did my undergrad and grad in computer science. So I've been surrounded. I grew up as an engineer, grew up around engineers. I worked with engineers. So what I see in my personal experience is that as an engineer, I was personally always excited about working with technology. I see the developers and engineers I work with are very, very excited about technology and creation. They are the people who are saying, let's think about invention, let's think about the design, let's analyze, let's build and test. So they're really all about hands-on experience. They love touch and feel, and they are super passionate about creating. Um, I picked up this cartoon, where the manager is saying, I'll go and see what they want. You start programming in the meantime. So I come from computer science background, so a lot of my examples would be around programming, but you can translate that to an engineer. Engineering fields, or the engineer himself or herself is very passionate about building. So they see a problem, they jump right onto it, and they get excited about building. Um, their mindset is really all about technology, the tools, the coding or designing or systems or applications or architecture. So they're really good at the tools they've learned. Where they struggle is a big picture, the business understanding, really understanding about financial intelligence. What does my P&L look like? How does the budget reflect? What is my customer acquisition or go to market strategy for my business? So really truly understanding business is something which they feel, oh, the business can do it or the users can do it. I'm here to really build the technology. So the connection between technology and business is always an issue. So no matter which organization you go, you always see that the technical mindset and the business mindset is always clashing. Uh, there was another really cool um, cartoon I was looking at, which actually showed the two groups where the business looks at the technology people as aliens, and the technology people look at business people as um, very elementary in technology, very um, they're rookies in the field of technology, so they don't give them that respect because they don't understand technology. So there's always a constant conflict you would see between technology and business, and that stays forever, right? Because when you are in your field of just engineering and you're not really in the leadership role, you see yourself in your own silo, instead of looking at the big picture. But let's look at a C-level executive, a CEO. What's the CEO's responsibility? If you're a chief in an organization, your responsibility is much bigger. You're thinking about the company. You're thinking about how can I maximize shareholder value? What is my market share looks like? You're thinking about the growth. You're thinking about invention. You're thinking about competitive edge. You're thinking about what my IP is. What is my secret sauce? So you're really thinking about the big picture. How do I create a monopoly, or how do I create a bigger market share? So the chiefs are usually thinking about the big picture. They are the people who are building strategy. They're thinking about how do we create a big plan to really scale, do a whole, have a fast growth organization. So they're really always thinking about the growth. So what is their priorities? The CEO's priorities are focusing on the business because they're visionary. They're thinking big. They're thinking about the future. Where will we be in 3 years, 5 years, and how the business is going to grow? How is the business going to make money? How much money would we need to really make sure that growth is there? Should we acquire other businesses? Should we really get into different territories? So really thinking about how and what are the creative ways of building a business. And that's what the chiefs are thinking about. So as an engineer, how do you create that shift, right? So you really want to create that shift because you got the knowledge. You're smart. You've gone to school. You've really learned your tools and technology. And of course, the business doesn't get what you can do. So you definitely have some advantages. But if you want to have a C-level title, it could be a chief technology officer, chief information officer, chief X, and that's why I said chief any officer, chief CXO officer. What are the skills you need to be a chief? what you really need. And in larger organization, you could have multiple presidents in different business groups. But what do really chief or a leader of an organization needs to have? And how do you create that shift? So I start with number one. And the biggest thing is that learning about the big picture. You know, I sit on a board and I, was talking before our board meeting. I went to the CEO and I said, let me talk to the head of technology and see if they have all the right um, analytics for us to review during our board meeting. We want to make sure that we have all the data. And as I'm sitting through with him before our board meeting and I'm looking at the analytics, and I'm saying, I'm really concerned about the spend of money in marketing because there were different products. And so I asked the CIO and I said, which product, if we spend as a company, increase the marketing spend on product A instead of product B, how would my revenue projection change? And he just sat there. And right before that, he was showing me, look, we implemented Microsoft BI. We can do all these graphs. Look how we can have filters. We can do all these changes. Look, the graphs are so much better. So he was so excited about the tools. But when I asked him about a business problem and seeing how the business could get affected by a couple of changes, he did not have an answer. So the important piece is that because engineers are so smart and they get so excited about the tools specifically, that they forget the big picture. So as an engineer, how do you create that change? You have to start understanding what the big picture is. You have to start thinking big and say, what is my vision? If I'm building an application, can I think bigger? Is it scalable? Is it repeatable? What kind of impact I'm going to have building what I'm building? And do I actually do a calculation? Do I actually do my financial impact on what I'm building for the business? What is my scope? And can the scope be bigger? So I would say as a C-level executive, or if you're getting ready, or if you want to act like one, if you're not there, I always say, if you want to be something, start acting today to be what you want to be tomorrow. So if you want to be a C-level professional, you need to start acting like a C-level executive, at least thinking like one today. And you need to start adopting and embracing those qualities to make sure that you can start thinking, acting, and producing like a leader. Very, very big thing. And a lot of times engineers forget to do this, is they take a little problem and they run to develop instead of spending time on thinking about the big picture and thinking about how can I take this application and create repeatable, scalable, and measure the impact and a financial impact of what we are spending in. Technology could be expensive, and that's why it goes into cost centers. But how do you take that technology and convert that into really, truly creating impact on the revenue? So a big one, when we get into discussion, I would probably, and I push my CXOs to really think bigger. What are you building? Why are you building? What's the impact? You call it ROI, you call it, financial impact statements, but you want to make sure that you have an impact statement on anything you build. Very, very important. The second thing I talk about is alignment. It's very important as an engineer that you learn to build your allies. You need to really think about how can I get the alignment with business? How can I make sure what we are doing within IT, our IT strategy, our data strategy, our technology strategy, how do I understand that our goals are completely aligned with the corporate goals? You may think that they are aligned, but can you really truly measure? Again, I'm going to keep coming back to measuring. You need to be able to measure your success and your alignment with your goals and objectives of the organization. Much easier to go out and say, we're building a biggest application. We're building the biggest data warehouse. We're building a biggest, machinery. But are you creating a truly an impact on the business outcomes? Are you aligned with the goals and objective? If there was a certain amount of growth in a certain sector, is your product going to help the organization deliver that? And do you have the right priorities? Are your teams just worried about uh, taking care of the backlog? Are you truly going after the high priority items? So very, very important that you have the alignment with the business. I know the questions and answers are going to be at the end, but I would love to hear about your challenges around alignment, because I would say that 90% of the people I talk to, this is the biggest problem, is that the alignment issues are always there in different companies. I talk about delegate, and this is coming from a computer programmer's viewpoint, that usually a software engineer never likes somebody else's work. And I'm sure that any engineer who's working with somebody else's design does not like other people's design. And the reason is because we're so crazy about doing what we do because we know we do it the best. We're giving our best shot. We're going to create the best design. We know what we are doing. So taking somebody else's work and cleaning it up is a mess. So might as well start from scratch and do what we are really, really good at, right? So what happens then? You're just putting everything on yourself. You're not spending time on what? On making sure you're building the team, or you're delegating. So delegation is the key to success for an engineer to climb the ladder to be a leader. And you call it a C-level, to become a C-level executive. But I say that if you act like a leader, you get the title. So not worry about the title so much, but acting like a leader is really, really important. So what does delegation means? Delegation is really about building people. As an engineer, you can become a manager, you can get the role, but from manager to becoming a leader is about people. Building your people, building your teams, and building the culture. I'm going to talk about that furthermore in my other points, but really important that you build your people. Having the right people can change the game. If you have the wrong people, you will spend so much time on just trying to improve the people. And I always say, you can't teach a fish how to climb the tree. If somebody's good at swimming, you can't say, climb the tree and get me a mango. So understand what people's strengths are and appreciate them for what their strengths are, and recognize what their weaknesses are and what they're not good at, and position them into what they're good at. If they're not good at something, keeping them in that role is disservice to them and disservice to you. So I always say, when you have to move people out of your organization or your team, you're doing them a service if they're not happy, if they're not being successful. So your job as a leader is to recognize the strength of your team, help them build, hire the right people, put the right people in the bus. I love Jim Collins and Jim Collins' book. Jim Collins in all his books talks about the importance of having the right team, the right people in the right seats when you're driving the bus. So as a leader, when you're building your bus, you're building your team, you want to make sure you have the right people in the place, and then you build them up. Your job is, as a coach, building your team. When you're a manager, you're giving them duties, and then you're expecting. You might not measure it properly. You expect and you get frustrated. You need to turn that around into being a leader, so you can actually mentor your team members and help them be successful. Because if they're successful, you're successful. And for you to be a leader, to be a C-level executive, you need strong team. You will not be successful if you don't have strong team. So really emphasize on who you have on your team and build your team. Number 4, focus on customers. Customers could be internal customers or external customers. It could be finance, it could be your customer, it could be your field sales, be your customers, or it could be your external customers. Understand who your customers are. As an engineer, we forget. We say, oh, we don't have to worry about the customers. We're just designing. We need to focus on technology. We don't care who the customers are. Marketing and sales is doing that. But as a good engineer who really, truly cares about being a leader, a chief in the organization, always focuses on your internal and external customers. Understand who your customers are for your organization, for your division, for your department. Understand what your customers' need are. If your customers are happy, so what is a business, right? The business is when a consumer buys something in exchange for the value they get. So there's a transaction. Why would anybody pay something if they're not happy? So when you're building a technology, would it truly serve your customer? Would there be a transaction? Would your business do well? So really focus on your internal and external customer and spend time on learning your business. Spend time on learning your customers and understand how you can make sure you can make your customers' life easier. So, and it's business is never on the other side. It's always on yours. You're the same team. So you can't focus on vertical. I'm the manager. I'm going to focus on my vertical team and I'm going to build my people. Your horizontal team, the matrix organization, or even if you're not, if your peers and their team is your team, it's one company. So you want to make sure that there's not me versus them. It's always focused on how can we as a group be successful. So really, really focusing on the customer, internal and external. And again, we can spend a lot of time talking about that and take some real good real-time examples to discuss that. Next, know your numbers. Know about finance. What does your ratios look like? What does your budget to actual is? What is the impact of your? And sometimes you'll say, "Oh, it's a technology. We don't know what the impact would be." Invest time when you're writing your scope of your work. Figure out how it's going to make your business users' life easier. How would it make your customer life easier? Spend some time understanding the numbers. Know how the numbers create the impact. I always say, no matter what kind of engineer you are, if you want to be a chief and you want to be a senior leader in your organization, you need to really learn, invest, spend time. I'm going to go back to, the quote. I would say, leaders are lifelong learners. Spend time in learning the skills which you don't have. Financial intelligence is really, you go to school to be an engineer. You don't spend a lot of times on learning about profit and loss, income statement, cash flow statements. Learn about that. Learn about not only the budget for your department, but how does the impact of revenue or loss or cash or acquisitions are what impact it's having on business. Truly understand the art of finance. Really, really important. And I spoke about this before.
Asha?
Measure what matters.
Just wanted to take a pause. We are midway through your points, and I want to make sure we are encouraging the audience to think about what you've spoken so far and come up with the questions. We will open up to the audience in about 10 minutes, where we'll have interaction and a lot more Q&A from both live sessions that we are live streaming on, as well as Clubhouse. So essentially, think big. And Asha, please continue.
And if there are questions, I mean, Piyush, I'm happy to take the questions if you want me to pause and take questions, but happy to continue going on till the end.
Please continue. Please continue. We'll stop in 10 minutes.
So, you hear about measure what matters, and what you measure gets done. But truly, is your KPIs clear? Are your OKRs clear? Do you follow through and make sure you measure on a weekly basis? Is your one-on-one meetings consistent and effective? Are you rambling in your meetings? Your team is thinking, oh, the meetings are a waste of time. You want to make sure that your team meeting starts with, I call it RPI, results, progress, issues. So you want to very quickly go with the results. What's my KPI? 3 numbers, success metrics. What is my 3 things I need to measure immediately? On your weekly meeting, 3 measures, talk about your 3 measures, go immediately to what's in progress and focus on issues, solve the issues. I also say, never, ever, ever give a solution to someone in your meeting. If someone brings a problem, they find the solution. You are not responsible for giving the solution. The person who finds the problem gives the solution. That's how they learn. That's how they grow. So as a leader, it's your responsibility to enable your people, your team, to be able to grow in their position by solving their own problem. So having a but it's your responsibility to make sure that it's a clear measure, that your team has a clear measure of what makes them successful. What are the KPIs, and do they know that? Do they know what they need to do daily to get the wins by the end of the week? Their week wins converts them into successful metrics of the monthly metrics, which they can be successful in, your quarterly successes and your annual successes. And communication, make sure that it's communicated. I'm going to talk about that. I think it's the next slide. Communication, really important. If you don't know, if you are a lot of time engineers say, we don't need to sell. You need to sell no matter what role you're doing. You need to make sure that you are a good salesperson of your vision, of your direction, of your inspiration. Everything is all about communication. How you, it's not so much about selling in the context of you're not a car salesperson. You're selling your ideas, you're selling your design, you're selling your product, what you're building. So you should be able to communicate what you're delivering. You should be able to clearly communicate with your team. You should be able to clearly motivate your team members and clearly communicate up to your management. You're a C-level executive. C-level executives know how to communicate. They communicate internally, they communicate externally. They talk to their customers, they talk to their employees, they talk to all the stakeholders in their organization. So communication skills are really, really important. If you're a good communicator, you can, as I said, it says here, inform, persuade, coach, and inspire people. So really important that you spend time on helping build your communication skills. There are tons of courses you can go out and learn, where storytelling and how to communicate better and how to be a good communicator. Tons of learning. Again, I'm going to keep saying that leaders are lifelong learners. So invest in yourself. No matter what stage you are, you need to make sure you're refining your skills to be a chief in an organization. Clarity and consistency. A leader is always clear and consistent. You can't keep changing. So you want to make sure that you are giving clear direction, clear metrics, clear goals, clear objectives, and you're consistent in running your meeting properly. You're consistent in giving the same message. You're consistent in your behavior. So clarity and consistency is really important because you are the role model. You don't want to be too wavery. Yeah, of course. You want to pivot if things are not working in the right direction, of course. But you want to create consistent behavior, create rhythms. I call them healthy business rhythms. You need to make sure that there are healthy business rhythms in your organization. And you as a leader creates that. Number 9, power versus influence. A leader always, manager uses power, leader uses influence. A leader knows how to create, and these are all soft skills. And I'm going to talk about that. What you need is as a leader, those so-called soft skills, is to be able to influence. If you're showing power, if you know when to use carrot versus stick, you need to know that you need to make sure that when you are using influence, you get more things out of it instead of just using your power. So do you have the right soft skills, understanding empathy, compassion, influence, knowing when to say what, when not to say what, when to use power and when to use influence, having a clear understanding that a leader builds people, and are you spending time in learning about how to build your team? And lastly, culture. Culture is the main thing. If you have people in your team who are negative, who are complaining, who don't help, it's going to spoil the whole organization. So how do you build a good, strong culture? Comes from the very top. Can you help build the right culture? Make sure that you have the right people who maintain the right culture, and you give honest feedback, create the discipline, measure what matters, communicate clearly, and be consistent and create the positivity. You know what your core values are, build your core values. Make sure you stick with your core values. Make sure you repeat core values. You know, in my meetings, I would have um, icebreaker where we'll nominate each other for core values so people remember their core values. And so there are tricks which you can use to make sure that you're building the culture at every step. So there were some, these were some of the things which, you know, I thought of as I was putting this presentation together. But listen, life is about learning consistently. I'm going to open for Q&A now, Piyush, and we can maybe make this discussion. There was a lot which I shared here, and I just stopped sharing my presentation, and we can make it really engaging and take some real life
Absolutely.
examples.
Absolutely, Asha. It was definitely worth the time of waiting for people to ask questions. So, obviously, you are an expert, you've been coaching, you've run companies as well. But starting with why is always the big thing, right? Why are we doing this? Why are we uh, uh, doing this session is very important. So I want to address that for the context of this. Now, more than according to a recent study, more than 90% of the staff in post-pandemic are looking for changing their jobs. And how does that relate to the C-suite, where the average tenure, anyways, happened to be under 18 months? They used to say a CIO loses team in 18 months, and then churn happens. So, are there any tips for those who are already in the C-suite or senior executive roles that you would like to share here? Let's begin with that.
So your question is that the senior leaders, how they should not maintain their teams so that they don't
No,
lose their team members?
basically, there are two forces here. One is the natural tendency of the C positions being in a vulnerable spot that they churn voluntarily or involuntarily. Now, add to the factor of the last 18 months of the pandemic, where a lot of things have changed, and not only are their teams churning, but they themselves might be
Oh, got
thinking
it.
about doing something different. So, what are your perspectives on that
So
new emerging trend?
the CIOs who are churning or they are thinking about doing something else, I would say that for the CIOs, specifically the CIOs or CTOs, the most important thing is that a lot of times CIO role was about managing cost. How can you get the most out of the infrastructure cost or technology cost? How do you reduce it? Go talk to the vendors, beat the vendors up, and you know, very little focus was on how IT can become a revenue center. It was always a cost center. It goes into CFO, and all it is about is managing money. How do you just cut costs and just get us the most you can from the IT? IT seems like a headache. Oh my God, who wants to talk to IT? You know, so CIOs need to convert that mindset by really focusing on impact. I spoke about impact. Very little time is spent on doing the calculation of how the technology is building revenue for the organization. Not only recently now, when we have technology based organization, if you have companies like Uber or Amazon, they are technology based organization and their technology produces revenue. But traditional organization, which is manufacturing or CPG or pharmaceutical, they don't see IT as the mainstream revenue generating engine for them. How can our CIOs become business leaders? How can our CIOs and CTOs start focusing on how in manufacturing truly you can bring technology to increase revenue? So the focus on revenue growth instead of just cutting costs is really important. How do you spend money on R&D or creating the secrets or the IP within technology to create the differentiation and create a competitive edge? I think the CIOs need to really truly start thinking about what can I do as a CIO to create an impact in the business?
Right. And also, I've seen a lot of new CIO, new C-level positions being advertised these days. There's the CIO stands for, used to stand for Chief Information Officer, but it also is Chief Innovation Officer. There are CDO positions, Chief Data Officer positions. There are Chief Digital Officer positions, and CISOs, security officers, so on and so forth. And so where are we going with this plethora of C-level positions? Your perspective, please, Asha.
So it depends on the organization and what they value. So if an organization values data, they'll have a chief in the data area. If they value digital, so you'll see a lot of retail organizations have chief digital officer because they care about having digital presence. If they care about security, they'll have a chief security officer. So a lot of times the C positions will dictate if you're a publicly traded company, will dictate your stock price by showing what kind of management team do you have. And that shows to the shareholder, if I have invested in Johnson & Johnson and they invest in chief data officer, I know now that they are going to be investing in data. So I know that they are going to be hopefully bringing out products which would be data-based products. So if organizations have a C-level, C-suite position, it gives a clear indication of where the company is going. And based upon the company's projections, C-level positions are defined.
Great, thank you. I want to invite a couple of CEOs who are in the room today to ask their questions as well. I see Raju and then Mamta as well in the room. So Raju, you want to go ahead with your question first? And then Aina, you
Absolutely.
can reset the room on Clubhouse, please.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, um, Asha, thank you very much for the quick rundown. It's a very quick summarized 10 points to keep in mind, and it was really insightful as you were going through that. I posted that in the chat, by the way, the whole listing. So really appreciate what you have mentioned. What I also, so my question is, like there is a lot in this list, and of course, all of those things have to be kept in mind as the leader in the team. But what would you suggest as a top few things a leader has to think about for the first 30 days? So once a leader comes to, for first 30 days, everybody's watching. It's a period where you are doubting yourself. So many things happening. What any suggestions for the first 30-day period?
If it's a new job and you're in a new job, it's not just about 30, you should have a plan for 30, 60, and 90 days. So you really want to make sure that you have a solid plan going in. 30 days is always about listening. I always say that based upon how much depth you have in the organization, first 30 days about listening. You really need to invest in figuring out how you're going to listen to the stakeholders, to your team, and come up with some kind of a plan. Phase one would be 30, 60, 90, depends upon how large the organization is, how new you are. But the phase one, the first phase would be listening. Second phase is designing and strategizing. And the third phase is execution. In design and planning is also about not just about design and plan of the strategy, product, but also people and organizational chart. You want to make sure that your organization is structured properly to win. So it's like, I love when you think about you going to the war, what do you do first? You want to make sure that you understand, listen, observe, you create a plan, and then you execute. And that's really what you want to do when you're going into a new job. You don't want to go in and start making changes immediately. You want to go in and make sure that you listen and understand, because it's going to take you time to understand what the consumer wants, what is your business wants, what your internal users want, what truly is your customer like, what kind of data have you collected, what kind of information you have in place. And then you think about putting together a strategy together. So second phase would be having a solid strategy, which you want to be politically correct. There's a really interesting theory about a positive politics and a negative politics. So you want to make sure that you understand the positive politics in the organization and understand how the strategy will be effective within any organization and you understand the positive politics of the organization. And then you execute with a plan.
Thanks, Asha. Very insightful. It truly seems like a master class. You are right on top and very concise in your thing. Thank you very much. I'll let others do it, and I have few other questions, but I'll let the questions
I
rotate.
see a question here on the chat. Surbi, Surbi, do you want to ask your question? Do you want to expand on the question you were asking in the chat?
Surbi, you want to come on the camera and ask?
There you are.
Actually,
I
yeah,
can see you,
sure.
Surbi, now.
Sorry, I'm not prepared for the camera, but that's okay, Piyush. You turned
Go
the
ahead,
camera
go
on.
ahead,
That's
Surbi.
okay. No, so
And by the
my
way,
question.
Asha, Surbi is on the Silicon Valley board. She is a senior exec at Juniper and also a very good friend. So Surbi, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Piyush. So Asha, first of all, thank you for the presentation. I really loved it, enjoyed all the insights that you have shared with us today. My question was more around the financial aspects, right? You said a lot of us have grown up from the technology side. So for us, we are grokking the various aspects of the business. But I feel in the financial side, there's so much to learn, right? When I sit and talk with my CFO or financial teams, right, the FinOps teams, there is a lot of different aspects that they cover. Now, from a point of view, I'm growing up in a product organization, right? I lead product teams and I aspire to be in that CXO, CPO kind of role. What aspects are the most important in that financial analysis
It's a great
understand?
question, Surbi. Great question. And I'm glad you asked. I was hoping somebody would ask the question because this is a very, very important question. You are in product. And if you aspire to be a CPO or be the leader in product division, you need to really understand how the products are going to create an impact on the business. What do you need to understand? You need to understand what is the company's revenue today? Where are the company's direct costs, COGS, cost of doing goods? What are their COGS? This is all income statement. So you just you understand what is the direct cost, my business, my company as a whole. What is their direct cost? What is their gross profit? Are we profitable? And then comes SG&A or operating expenses, and then is your EBITDA or net income. But if you understand basics of your income statement, you understand and you read line by line, where is the company making money? Where is company losing money? And I tell you, it's a beautiful way to understand any company. If you understand a company's income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow, those are the only three most important financial statements. You will be able to understand how the company makes money today and where the company is losing money. Now, if you understand that really well about your company, and if you and I sat together and you listen, your company is publicly traded. You and I can sit on the financial reports. Very quickly, we can start looking at some trends. Very quickly. Within 30 minutes, you and I can tell you where the company are having issue. Now you relate that down to product and you say, what products are we building? Is my product the problem or is my product bringing the revenue? Now you clearly know how your product can. Now when you're sitting with your business user, your number one question is going to be, I see in the financial statement last quarter, which was published already, we are having some problem here or there or wherever. Now you can have an intelligent conversation with your business to understand how your product is having an impact. Very important. There are tons of courses, Surabhi, online. Columbia, I teach at Columbia, and Columbia has an amazing program on financial intelligence for business users. You can have that Coursera, go to any place and learn about financial intelligence for business users. Financial intelligence for non-finance people. I'll give you a really good idea about how to understand a business looking at numbers. So invest in it. Invest time on that. It's very important. As an engineers, we don't spend time on it. I don't see any engineer. Exactly. And not only you, nobody does.
No, it's good advice. To be honest, I have taken that. That's what I was saying, that I have taken these courses. And like I said, there's so much to know. So with the time shortage, I always think, are there few key things that I should just focus on and be able to, understand what I need to know?
I'm happy to spend 30 minutes. I can give Piyush for your organization for a couple of people who wants to spend
I
30
would
minutes
love
with
that.
me. And I can
Yeah,
simply spend 30 minutes with you and give you very quickly some pointers which you could use for your lifetime. Everything's
Thank
Asha,
you,
we
about
will
Asha.
have a follow-on session with you from selected handful executives from this today's presentation, as well as folks from the clubhouse, and we are going to put together an event for that. So, guys, stay tuned. And as I put in the chat channel, the most interesting questions and most engaging audience will be given prizes. So please ask your question, put in the chat window. Now, from the clubhouse team, Aina is helping me moderate this session simultaneously. So, Aina, go ahead, unmute yourself on Clubhouse and reset the room and ask your question, please.
Yeah, sure. Hi, Piyush and Asha. Wonderful presentation. Hope you hear me well, everybody. So I opened the room on Clubhouse and the questions to everybody. So if you have any questions to Asha and Piyush, please raise your hand and I will bring you up on stage so you'll be able to speak up. And we are the club Engineering Tales. If you are not following us yet, please press the green house on the top of your application. Today we are talking with the wonderful Asha Saxena, who is a CEO coach, a board advisor, and also published author, and also Piyush Malik, who is a startup executive, entrepreneur, board advisor, and business transformation practitioner in the domain of emerging technologies. So again, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. And this event is recorded. And if you are interested in the previous episodes or this recording or future recording, you can go to my Instagram, which is published here on Clubhouse, and to just subscribe to our YouTube channel. So this is from me. And can I ask my question right now?
Yes, please.
Wonderful. So Asha, you mentioned that as a leader, we need to encourage our employees not come just with problem, but with a solution. And I remember my experience as a young engineer, right after graduation. So I had like 1 or 2 years of experience. And unfortunately, I had enough experience to see the problems, but not enough to find the solutions. And a couple of times I come to my leader with a problem, and he told like, why did you bring me the problem? Why did you bring me a new headache? Find a solution. And I really like tried my best to find the solution, but I couldn't. And then I had like a moral dilemma. So I can't come without the solution, but this is a problem which will cost us money in the future. So I felt like, so guilty by not being able to find the solution, and also not being able to come with a question, because like in the organization I started being called like problem person who always brings problems to the meeting but not a solution. So what to do in this case? Just like to remain silent until I get enough experience, or keep like pushing, being like a problem person in the organization?
So the answer is there's a really great video clip. It's called Good. I forget the name of the. Oh, Jocko. Jocko wrote a book, and there's a video on it called Good, and it talks about if you have a problem, the manager usually say good, because usually when you have a problem, it's a blessing. When problem comes, it forces you to find answers. If there is no problem, you're stagnating. If things are good, it's a problem. When things are steady, that means you're not going to grow. It's steady. Things should not be steady. Things should not be easy. Things should be challenging. And there should be problems. The question is, if you have a problem, you need to find the solution. You're not finding the solution, that means you're not challenging yourself enough. So uh, um, I would recommend, if you're a manager and I come to you with a problem, you don't give me an answer. You ask me questions. You can say to me, what would be the solution, Asha? I don't know. Asha, think hard. This is a problem. How would you find a solution? I love, again, I'm from computer science, so I'll give you a programming example. I was talking to a AI programmer recently, and I said, how would you solve this problem? And she said, I loved it. She said, there's no, I'll figure it out. And I said, how would you figure out if there's a problem? She said, there's always a Google. I'll hunt for answers. I won't get one answer, I'll get another answer. I'll try another thing. And I was like, that is such a great attitude. So if you can't find a solution, you're not trying hard enough to find the solution. You need to hunt and try. You might fail the first time, or you might fail the second time, but the person who brings the problem is responsible for finding the solution. You know why? Because if somebody hands you the solution, you will not grow. And a good leader will never give you the solution because he or she wants you to grow. And so you, if you're saying, I'm not finding the answer, it means you didn't try hard enough. You just have to keep hunting for a solution. Someone else might have had the same problem. So knock on somebody else's door. Find someone who's gone through that before. But a leader will never give you an answer. You never, ever, whoever brings the problem has to bring the solution. That's the best way you mentor and build people.
Teaching them to fish
You
rather
can't
than
fish for
giving them
them.
food. Perfect, perfect. I know there are some questions on Clubhouse. I will come to those from Monisha is waiting patiently, but there's Mamta here who is waiting to ask her question as well.
Yeah, I would
So
love to hear from Mamta because I think Mamta's question is such a great question. I've been waiting to answer that question.
Oh,
right, Mamta,
sure. Go
please
ahead, Asha.
come on camera and ask your question now.
Yeah, okay, let's see. I am wearing my apron proudly as a leader. So
Now
anyway,
now we have to come to your kitchen.
yeah. So yeah. So the question is, yes, leaders are lifelong learners, but some people have to follow. But the leaders, are they born leaders or can they be made? Can they be groomed? You heard the question. Go for it.
So the first thing is that yes, everybody is different, Mamta, and everybody is born different. And somebody are strong at communication, somebody is strong at strategy, somebody is strong at technology. So everybody is born with different skills. So I would say definitely yes. Some people might have advantage because they have the leadership skills or they are compassionate, so they can become better leaders, or they have, more strategy. They become better leaders, but if you have the desire to learn, you can learn to be a good leader. So I would say that yes, there are people who are born and it comes naturally to them, and it comes easily to them, but you still have to learn to be a leader. A leader invests in the people. A manager is after the people to get the highest performance without mentoring and coaching. A leader truly invests. Investing means being patient, making sure that you are helping your team be successful. So I would say that it's about your interest level. If you truly want to be a good leader, you will invest in learning and will become a lifelong learner and say, you know what, I'm struggling. My team is not performing. What do I do? They go out and hunt and learn the skills to become a better leader.
Awesome. Can I ask a second question also quickly?
Yes.
That was about scaling. So what I'm observing is when you're a leader and you're just starting something brand new, so 0 to 1 requires a different kind of leadership. But
Yes.
now you have to scale and grow and have just organic growth has to happen, or planned growth. How do you see leadership principles changing then?
So the person who grows the company from 0 to 1 and the person who grows with the company from 1 to 100 is definitely different skills. When you're early on in your career at building a company, you are doing it all. You're hands-on, you're, into everything. You're micro or detail-oriented person. You're going in and looking at, scanning everything you're building. But when you are at a 50 or 100 level, when you're growing the company from 1 to 100 and at that transition, now you really need to become a leader because you need to make sure you're hiring the right people. Number one thing which people do the wrong mistake in, they don't hire the right person and they try to hire average people and they say, how do I navigate and save them? And then they try to coach them and they try to mentor them and then they fail and then they get frustrated and then everybody's frustrated. So hiring the right people. So I always say, don't be penny wise, pound foolish. You can't try to save money and hire substandard people for something which you really is a high important or high value employee. So don't be penny wise, pound foolish. Treat people well, pay people well, make sure you get the right person, the best person for the job. Best person for the job. If you get the high caliber team members, your company output will be it's night and day. The experience is night and day, right? So you make
Absolutely.
the right people, and then when you are from 1 to 100, you then transform as a leader. You make sure that you start delegating more, building the team, thinking big. Once somebody said, I was talking to a CEO and I said they started working with me 18 months back and they had 69% growth this year. And I said, what was the one thing which really made a change for you working with me? And he said, Asha, we never knew we could think bigger. He's like, we thought we were thinking big. And you walk in and you say, this is not big. And he said, you pushed us to think bigger. So I always say that you think big, you think you're thinking big, but you're not thinking big enough. So you need to push yourself and push your boundaries. And you need to empower and inspire your team to think bigger. As a leader, you cannot afford to think small.
Yeah.
When I was building my company, I met this person who I was inspired by. I said to him, when I'm 50 million company, I'll be really happy. And he looks at me and he says, why not 500
Yeah.
million? Why are you thinking 50? And I just sat there and I said, I don't know. I never thought about that. So,
Yep.
so I would say that think big. If you think you're thinking big, it's not big enough. Think bigger.
Yep. Awesome. Now that's pretty insightful. Thank you.
Great answer. And thanks, Mamta, for your question. Asha, we're at the top of the hour, and I want to reset the room in a way. I just want to assure that the Q&A can go on. And since we did not get any those kind of confidential questions that would require us to stop recording, I think we will continue recording and live streaming at the same time.
Okay.
And while you join Clubhouse, we promised the Clubhouse audience, Asha, that you would be there at the top of the hour. So we will take those questions there as well. But for the ASCI audience and for those who are new to ASCI, I want to just give a brief introduction. American Society of Engineers of Indian origin is a 38-year-old organization with the mission to foster science and technology, temper, and create a community of like-minded engineers and scientists amongst the Indian diaspora. With 5 active chapters who aspire to organize events in their local geography, but in the last 18 months, we've all been doing a lot of things remotely. So everything is virtual. And I represent the Silicon Valley chapter originally. 6 years back, I started that, but I'm privileged to be the national chair as well this year. And I'm trying to do a little bit more experimentation here, bringing in the Clubhouse audience as well. So what I would like to say here is that there are prizes for most exciting questions. So please continue to let them flow. And I want to see if Vatsala has any questions. And after that, we will go back to our Clubhouse audience. And Monisha has been patiently waiting there for a long time. So I want to give chance to Monisha from Clubhouse, and I'll let Vatsala go first.
I had my question, and it's all about the financial thing. Being a technical person, we do not have any interest in the financial statements and all. What is the one thing that can generate that interest? Because I can study the courses, but it still doesn't interest me.
So it's like building a really cool product who no one wants to play with. So if you are building a product and no one wants to play with it, what's the point of building that product? You creating the best technology, you build the best tool, and no one uses it. What's the point? Right? So when you're an engineer, you want your product to be out in the market. And that's why they said Thomas Edison was not just an inventor, but he was truly a businessman because he knew how to take his inventions to the market. So for you to understand, and maybe you don't read the financial statement by sitting in the class, and that's why I think I said to Mamta, or was it
Could be.
Surbhi? So I mentioned to Surbhi, and I said, you can sit with me and I can make you understand how it impacts you directly, because you really need to understand how the money matters to you and your products. So when you're looking at an income statement and you go line by line and you try to understand, okay, where are they making the money? How are they making, my companies making the money? And what products are really bringing the most revenue and growth for the organization? Then you try connecting the dots. Money is just a metrics for you to understand how your product is doing. What you're building matters. What you're building is no good if it's not getting used or providing any kind of revenue. You know, I in my organization we implement CRM. Nobody is using it. What's the point of implementing CRM? It becomes a pain because we don't know how to use it. It's too complicated. The workflows are not implemented properly. What's the point? People, you spend so much money, so many hours. All these programmers go and implement, and I'm sitting there and saying, I don't want to use it. So what's the point of building something when the business users can't take advantage of that? Then I'm of course going to say it's my cost center. IT is not something which I pay attention as a CEO, because IT doesn't know how to give me money or use business intelligence to connect the technology to business. So as a business user, I'm frustrated. You could be genius and build something, but if you can't make that usable for me, and if you don't understand, and that money is just a measure for you. The reason I say becomes really smart about money, because you're converting that into a story. Numbers aren't just the numbers, they're telling you a story. And you have to learn to read the numbers as a story and what business story it's telling you.
Got
And
it.
then you connect IT to business. You know, we hear all these buzzwords: IT, business should be aligned, data strategy, business strategy. All this is buzzwords. The true, what the essence is, that as a CEO, if I have digital presence, what's the point of having a website? They say, oh, SEO, SCM, digital presence. What's the whole point? If it's not bringing me money, bottom line is you can use any fancy words for me. It's not bringing me money. As a business owner, it's a private company or a public company, every C-level executive cares about bottom line. If they're not making money, they can't keep you in the job.
Right.
So you want to know how my technology is helping the business create resources so they can pay the bills or make
So,
revenue, and
so
profits.
basically, a top-down approach where the measurement tells you what to focus on, and then you go down and build it accordingly and align it properly.
Right, exactly. Otherwise, building is no fun. And you're building it because look how analytics, now we can do real-time analytics. What's the point of real-time analytics if you can't tell me where should I put my marketing budget changes and which product will sell more? We're sitting in a board meeting and wasting our time because we can't tell where the marketing budget should go. So our projections are all wrong. I sit in the board meeting and the projections are wrong. I'm saying, I'm getting paid as a board member. I don't want to take that money because I did nothing. I couldn't contribute anything because the data was all wrong.
Yeah, got it.
All right, great. Let's reset the room a little bit, Aina, on Clubhouse. And since Monisha is not an ASCI member, she's on Clubhouse listening in, but I would like to entertain her question as well. So Monisha, unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, thank you so much. I think that was Piyush talking, and Asha, really been fascinating. I know Piyush, you've said I've patiently waited. I don't think there was any need for that because the conversation was highly engaging. I work in the financial services space, and my question is a bit of a personal development question. In terms of, where I am at, I feel like, I'm ready for that next move where I know I have some of the skills required for the next level. But curious, Asha, like, when you see a group of skilled people, how do you see some of those who actually differentiate themselves from the crowd? How do you kind of see them?
Yeah.
I know you called out some of those 10 points, right? So it sounds like maybe differentiating on some of those aspects, but curious to see like what are some of the qualities that you've seen that kind of gets your interest from a group of like skilled people?
I am so glad you asked that question, because you know what? I interview people and I see most 99% of the people in the interview talk about themselves. I have done this. I can do this. I can build a gadget. But have you ever cared about when you are, as you said, Manisha, you're trying to personally develop, and if you are looking for new opportunities, how much time have you really invested in learning about the business and what do they want? And how can you create an impact for them? It's not just about you, it's about the business and the organization you're joining. How much do you understand and how much do you care? The best people who stand out if they do their homework. They understand the business, they understand the numbers, they understand how you can bring value. It's about value. You know, Piyush, a lot of people will ask me, especially in a women conference, they'll say, oh, confidence, like a lot of time it's perceived that the women leaders underplay themselves. And I landed up saying that I feel very confident. And they asked me the question, why do you feel? Like, what was it? I said, because I know when I walk in a room, I'm going to provide value. I'm not going to walk in a room where I'm not going to add value. So the question is, Manisha, to your point, how you stand out when you know that you're not going to walk in a room unless you provide value to the person you're talking to. It's not about the money, it's not about the position. Anywhere you go, in every relationship, in every business relationship or personal relationship, what is your contribution? It's not about, I know C++, I know Java, I can build cloud applications, I know AWS. It's not about what you know. It's about how much you care about the business and the organization and how much homework you've done and how smart are you to figure out in that one meeting, you brought something to the person where you created an aha moment for them. And people who stand out care about bringing value. And take that to anything. Take that to, I want to be a chief product officer, bring value to the business, to the organization as a whole, not just me, not to my people, to the vertical you don't like, to the vertical business vertical you constantly having butting heads with. You want to stand out as a leader, you want to make sure that you walk into an interview as a leader, you're constantly bringing value. I hope that answers your question, Manisha.
That was fantastic. Yes. I mean, I've heard of the concept of value exchange. I think part of my growth opportunity is also how I reinforce that value exchange, right? Like, what is
Exactly.
that value that seems to be resonating with the party that I'm interacting with? So,
Exactly. So
yeah.
not thinking so much about who I am and proving myself, you will prove yourself. Your content shows, your content speaks.
Great. Thank you, Manisha, for the question. And Asha, thank you for patiently taking a lot of questions. I would want Aina to see if she wants to reset the Clubhouse room while I look through the questions from the Zoom. Aina, go ahead, please, on Clubhouse.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Asha, for the answering the questions, and Piyush for moderating Zoom. So for people on Clubhouse, sorry, Piyush, could you mute yourself on Zoom because I'm hearing myself?
No, but if you mute yourself, then I can't hear Aina.
Yeah, so Aina, if I mute, then Asha can't hear. And Asha, you might want to hop onto Clubhouse right after this.
Okay.
Okay?
I apologize. I forgot to unmute myself on Zoom. So guys, thank you very much for being with us for the last hour. We are Engineering Tales Club. If you are not following us yet, please press the green button on the top of your application. And we are talking with Asha, Saxena, and Piyush Malik today. So Asha is a CEO and coach, also board advisor and published author. And Piyush is the organizing of this room, the creator of Engineering Tales, and startup executive, entrepreneur, board advisor, business transformation practitioner in the domain of engineering technologies. So give the moderators a follow on the Clubhouse as well. And now we are on the Q&A session. So guys, if you have any questions, please raise your hand and we will bring you up on stage. And we will have Shank on stage. Can we go with Shank, please?
Hey, thank you everyone for this opportunity. I've been just listening to this conversation for the last 10 minutes or so. That's quite exciting. Sorry, can you all hear me properly?
Yes.
Oh, right, thank you. So I work for a large IT organization that is recently, and for the last 2 years, going through tremendous top-level management change. It just, right from board members up to CEO, I would say. While this change is going on, there were a number of discussions at our level. We were deliberating either officially or unofficially outside the rooms to check two things. One is the CEO role going to be a valid, efficient, and required role in the modern world? As you see, the roles are getting diluted or segregated into like CMO and probably like a CDO these days. And I'm not sure whether there's a role called Chief Enlightenment Officer anyway. This is my first question: is there a need for a role like CEO in an organization? That's my first question. And then second thing is, when you want to get into that kind of career ladder, is there a chance for somebody who's just purely technocrat but working in a service organization who would only know the numbers and sales graphs? These are my two questions. I'll go on mute now.
So your first question was, is there a need for CEO in the future for organization? And what was your second question?
Second question is, if it's still valid, somebody who's purely technocrat, but a top-notch person known to everybody in an organization would be able to get into that kind of role. Will a service organization really understand the value of a technocrat? Rather, they greet or being called a salesperson or somebody who brings the numbers and get the sales graph up.
Yeah, got it. So the question one, do we need a CEO in the future for the organization? I think we always need a leader. What you want to call it doesn't matter, but you need a leader on the organization who will be the spokesperson, who creates the vision, who leads, who's rallying the team. So you would need a leader in my mind. Without a leader, you cannot create a following. You cannot create a team. So you always would need a leader. What you can call it, who cares about the name, right? But you need a leader. Is that a CEO? Is that a president? Might have a new name? Who knows? To me, I think name is less important. The title is less important, but the role is critical. So you will need a leader always. Can a technocrat, a technologist be a leader in an organization, in a service organization? If the technologist is not financially savvy, business savvy, customer savvy, communication savvy, does not understand the culture, does not matter if it's technologist or not a technologist. The person who does not have those skills will not be the leader. You need to understand the numbers. You need to understand the business. You need to understand your customers. You need to understand your competitors. You need to understand how your team can create impact. You need to be a motivator. You need to be a leader who can inspire. You need to have the right skill set to be the leader. Now, the question, your question was, can the technologists be the leader if they had all those skills? Of course. I think you have advantage if you come from the technology and you're an engineer and have all those skills. In my opinion, I'm biased, but I think a technologist and engineer will be a better leader because they understand the core, the essence of the product for the tools. And if they put their mind to it and they say, you know what, We're going to learn numbers, we're going to learn business, we're going to learn customers, we're going to learn competitive analysis, we're going to understand market, we're going to understand acquisition, strategy. Then it's very hard for them to compete with anybody else. So in my opinion, an engineer can be an excellent CEO. Does that answer your question?
I think it does. And we are going to be limiting only one question per audience member. We are 10 minutes from closing this room. So get your last questions in. Let's see if anyone on the Zoom has any question. If not, then I may have one for you as well. So.
I just want to mention that if there is anybody who wants to follow up, LinkedIn the best way to connect with me. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, and that's where I'm most active.
Okay, so one question definitely I wanted to ask, which I was hoping somebody else would, but they haven't. So, in organizations, whenever somebody has become from an engineer to a senior manager to an VP, and they're looking at the C level, there's always an element of politics. I did not see that addressed in the session today. You want to throw some light?
Politics is very important. And that's why I mentioned earlier positive politics and negative politics. Politics is going to always be there. As a leader, you need to know how to navigate the politics. Do you want to create a positive politics environment or a negative? Negative politics is problems, complaining, pointing fingers. Positive politics is understanding the strength and weaknesses of people and navigating that to influence and create an impact. Ultimately, a leader needs to focus on the goal and objective and not worry about the chit chat or the chatter around. They need to be laser focused on creating a positive culture, positive influence, and positive politics. We're always going to have politics, right? What is politics, right? Some people have strength, some people don't have strength. Some people have power, some people don't have power. Understanding who has the power or not, who has the budget or not, you have to navigate that no matter what. So can you run away from politics? No. So you say, "Oh, I don't want to deal with the politics." You can't say that. You can't make an excuse and run away from it. You need to understand how to turn that around to your benefit. Positively, not putting anyone down, bringing people together, making sure you're keeping the culture strong, and addressing it head on, knowing how to navigate to make sure you're using that for the benefit of the higher cause.
Great, thank you. Raju, you had asked one more question. Do you want to come on this camera or
I can do that.
regarding the
But
low
if others
performing?
have question, I'll let others ask it as well. But if not, I'm more than happy. But I think it's an interesting question, which I think, Asha, there. When you become a manager, or even if you're a veteran, I think it's easier to have conversations about like praising people and appreciating and all of that. But there are times which you have to have those tough conversations, especially for whatever reason somebody's not performing. Maybe it's an employee, your subordinate manager, another leader, whatnot. It may be, right. So any guidance in that? That's a tough challenge, which I think many new and veterans struggle.
I would say never give false praise. You have to be always honest and you have to state facts. But you need to do it in a way that's not offensive or degrading. So if I say, Raju, I like the way you keep the timelines, but I see that there's an opportunity for you to improve on building people. So I gave you honest feedback, but I didn't demotivate you. So you always start with a positive fact and you address the opportunity for improvement. So you can say the same thing by saying, you know what, Raju, didn't like how you don't build people. Not cool. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do meet your timelines, because you know what? You do not build your people. I said the same exact thing twice. But the first time when I said, I complimented you honestly on saying that, you know what, Raju, I really like how you keep your timeline. And there is an opportunity for improvement for you, because you can really build your people and be less stressed. It'll help you get better. So I said the same exact thing, but how I say it, how I deliver my message. And that's why I keep saying communication is so critical.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for the example and the two versions of it. Excellent, Asha. Thank you.
Thank you, Raju and Asha. In the last 5 minutes, if there are no more questions, I would like to remind people that there is an event happening next Saturday as well, where we would be, we try to do, ASCI tries to do multiple events, both for adults as well as for youngsters. This was the first experiment where we were doing it for senior executives. As a reminder, we have 4 pillars of our strategy. We have Mentor Connect, where we connect mentors, highly experienced individuals, executives, to younger emerging leaders. And then we have University Connect, where we encourage students who are still in engineering college to be active with ASCI. And so we encourage faculty members as well as students with that activity. Then we have the youth program for high schoolers and youth technology exposition and science fairs that we sponsor and promote, and we give scholarships to students as well. So there are a lot of things that we do, but engineering tales and getting real with engineering are the real stories where we share where rubber meets the road and where people have gone on to do certain extraordinary things. So essentially, one event that is coming up next week is Muthu would be hosting it. Muthu, if you want to come on the camera and talk about it, please go ahead. Otherwise, I'll mention and I'll share the screen for the website.
Yeah, thanks, Piyush. Appreciate the
Go ahead,
time.
Muthu.
Yeah, so next Saturday, July 17th, we have an event with Dr. Ravi Bansal. It's quite interesting in 2 aspects. Number one, given the pandemic that we are going through and then just barely gone past. Anyway, just before the pandemic, Dr. Bansal flew around the world solo flight, raising mainly for cancer awareness. And needless to say, he also founded an oxygen production company called AirSup, and which really played a crucial role in the pandemic effort in India. And he's a philanthropist. He has spoken in our past ASCI events, and will be it's a privilege to talk to him next week. We'll talk about his solo flight, as well as how the oxygen concentrators and his expertise in all these helped India a big way. Part of our Getting Real with Engineering series. Thank you.
Thank you, Muthu, for sharing that. And for all those who are not yet members, please join ASCIUSA.org. It doesn't cost much. It's less than a few cups of coffee that you pay annually to become a member, and you become part of a professional organization, American Society of Engineers of Indian origin. Now, on to close this event and move on to exclusive Clubhouse after party. For those who are not on Clubhouse, please send me a note and I will see how we can send you invites. But if you are, there is an after party being planned right now with Asha. Will take a few more questions there. For all the ASCI members, thank you very much. And Varsula, go ahead.
Piyush, there's just one last question from Amit. I think Asha would love to answer that. Right?
If we have
Okay,
time,
go
I
ahead.
can. Otherwise, we can take it on Clubhouse, whatever is easier.
Yeah, go
Just
ahead,
one,
answer it.
one last one.
I just wanted to end by 11:30 on this platform and stop the recording.
Yeah,
So,
I
Asha, you
think
can take
we
1 minute to
quickly do.
do that.
Yeah, Amit, do you want to quickly mention before I answer the question for everybody's benefit?
Can you guys hear me? Hello?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. I just wanted to kind of restate the question. I've moved up pretty well, but I've kind of been plateaued at the senior director position, and it's just tough for me to figure out how to break into the VP ranks at a large Fortune 500.
Yeah. So there are two things, Amit, you have to keep in mind, especially in Fortune 500 companies when you're working for a big corporation. The politics, which we spoke about, always plays a part. And how the politics plays a part, Amit, is that, are you aligned with your manager? Are you aligned with your senior management? Not only just your manager. Do you know your manager's manager? Do you understand what their goal and objectives are, and what do they like? What do they not like? Have you understood really what their strategies are, and are you aligned with that? And have you really made an effort to make sure that not only your manager's manager has noticed you, and have you done things to make sure he looks good constantly? I was one of the persons I mentor. What she started doing was, she said there was a whole shift. There was a manager who was okay with her, but in the meeting she started crediting the manager in front of everybody, and she understood that the manager cared about getting the recognition. It was a small subtle thing. So do you understand what your manager and your management is looking for? It could be subtle things like just recognition, could be about ego, it could be about financial results, it could be about something else, product placement. So really understanding your senior leadership is really critical. And then being visible and creating a brand within your organization. So have you really invested in building a brand for yourself within the organization? And we can dig deeper, Amit, if you want it again. I mentioned to Piyush, we can dig deeper onto that to really get the root cause for your specific situation. But high level, I would say that there are two things you have to focus on. One is making sure your top management, top leadership, you understand their behavior, on what behavior they give recognition. And the second thing I would say is that making sure that you're investing in your own branding to make sure senior leadership sees you. And then there's a
That's
lot of other
really
deeper
yeah,
things.
and would love to connect with you offline. Thank you much for that.
Amit, can you send me a note? And we are going to be organizing a very small group intensive coaching for some of the ASI members. We'll invite you to that, Amit, if you can send an email to me, and we'll take it from there. Feel
Yep,
free to
will do.
connect
Thank you
on
much.
LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm easily accessible. Thank you very much. And to close this session today, uh, I just want to reiterate what we learned here. We learned from Asha about keeping the big picture vision in mind and always starting with why has been my principle as well. Start with why and what is the outcome your activities are going to have on your end customer. If you keep a focus on the customer, if you have the right alignment between the stakeholders in the company, if you learn how to delegate right, and if you learn the financials, being able to analyze the data in your mind or through the use of financial technology tools available, you will be golden. And then communication is also important. As an aspiring leader entering into the C-suite, the crisper you are in communicating, that's very important. So being a great communicator helps. There are tons of help available in telling your story. In fact, somebody pitched me just yesterday to join them for $5,000, a 3-day course in how to write your own story, how to tell your own story. So think about it. So that's the kind of value of communications being put in the audience in the marketplace today. Then power versus influence, and finally culture. So all these 10 power points that we heard from Asha, thank you very much for your sharing, and thank you for engaging with the audience here. With that, for those who are not yet members of ASCI, invite you to join ASCI. And any parting thoughts, Asha?
I just think that keep your hunger alive, keep the curiosity alive, and always be a lifelong learner. The more you invest in yourself, the more results you get.
Great. With that, drum roll please for the winners of today's session for the most interesting question. They are Raju
Just
Srivastava and Mamta. Um, I will follow up with you both individually. I have your email addresses and we'll take it from there. Let's get the party over to Clubhouse. Thank you guys. And we'll conclude this session here. And for those who can join on Clubhouse, we'll do another 25 minutes there as well. Thank you very much. Bye now.
Thank
Thank you
Thank
you.
you.
all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wonderful session.